And you're ready.
Good evening, everybody. Oops. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Talk Family Life, building shatterproof families one brick at a time. We're excited to join you on this October evening for another exciting program. So we have an exciting program set out for you today. Well, let me not say exciting. I think it's exciting to the extent that we get some advanced preparation for how we look to the next era of our life or the next phase in our life for those of us who might be rounding the curve. And I think it gives some perspective. I see Bishop Gary laughing at me already. But everybody talks about doom and gloom when they're round in the end, right? But it's supposed to be a time of celebration because we expect to go and see our Savior. You would have looked back and hopefully reflected and seen that you lived a full life. So tonight we're going to talk about preparing for your senior years, part 2. And we hope you would recognize the importance of developing coping strategies for life changes, including the potential loss of whether it's a spouse, a friend, or loneliness that often happens in your older years, and perhaps strengthening relationships with your family and your friends and your community and being engaged until that time when God calls us home. So here tonight, we have Bishop Gavin Gowrie with us, Pastor Anthony Henry, and Dr. Patricia Neff. I will ask them to introduce themselves, and then we're going to just spend some time evaluating a few questions tonight. Bishop Gowrie, over to you.
Hello, Bishop Gavin Gowrie. I am 59 years old. I'm right on that crest where people talk about retirement and all those kind of different things and change of lives and all that kind of stuff. So I am a father, grandfather, and a senior pastor now for 36 years. This is a very interesting topic, one that I hope to be able to shed some light on, but also to learn as I'm part of this great panel and discussion. God bless you. Trinidadian, by the way, yes, for those kind of know me across the Caribbean. I'm from the beautiful Trinidad Republic Islands of Trinidad and Tobago. Yes.
Dr. Neff.
I am Dr. Patricia Neff, residing in Arizona, United States. However, I am Trinidadian and wear that banner proudly. I don't know why I was drafted onto this panel, but I realize why, because Bishop Gary is obviously the baby, not counting the host. He's the baby. Bishop Gary is the baby. and he made an effort, a concerted effort to let you know how old he is. So I'm almost 10 years your senior in a couple months, in 3 months or so.
Praise God.
Yes.
And Pastor Henry.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sutherland. And so when you talk about age, what I've discovered over the years, when you are 21, as soon as you turn your 21st birthday, you tell people you're 22. And you do that until you get to about 35. When you get to your 70s, you wait until the last day of your 70th year, or you wait until the first day of your 71st year to say that you're 71.
Oh.
All right. So at one stage you're advancing, and another stage, when you get to another stage, you are praying that the clock stop rolling forward. So I have been praying that the clock stop rolling forward for many years now. I'm almost in my mid-70s, and I give God for the life that I've lived. I've enjoyed every moment of it, and I hope to be here for another 70.
Amen. Amen. Right? So, yes. Wow. I heard the numbers and I'm like, okay. Okay. Time to be schooled this evening. So let's jump straight into the first question. As we grow older, it seems like each funeral brings death nearer, almost as if death is whispering to us, Love you. For those in their late 70s or 80s, the loss of a spouse can lead to a desire for that final release. How can we as a community support individuals in preparing for that phase of life? And I want to start with Dr. Neff here. How can we help those who are older prepare for the final stages of life?
Well, it's truly a blessing to reach a certain age, and every day I consider it a blessing to be here, because I know that there are many who haven't reached this age, but it's truly a blessing. And the Bible really speaks to the values and the insights and the principles related to aging, the wisdom that comes with it, the honor that comes with aging. But it also talks about planning for the future, getting ready for that time when you reach to that age. So with regard to the question that you asked, how can we prepare individuals, supporting individuals in their 70s and 80s as they navigate the realities of aging, and how do you prepare them to deal with that part of their life? I think a lot of it has to do with communication. It starts with communication. But it's not something you can just jump into real fast, because not everyone is comfortable with aging. There's a certain comfort that one has to experience when it comes to aging, because you think of aging as end of life. You think of aging as, I'm winding down, I am no longer productive. I'm closer to the grave than I am than when I was born. But we don't realize that from the moment we are born, we're really living to die. It can come at any point in time. But as family members who are helping their loved ones navigate that phase of their lives, it's important for us to have those open communications about what are your plans? What do you want to do when you reach a certain age or a certain stage in your life? How do you plan to address this as you age? And also, as you have that communication, it must be done in a trusting, loving regard, because your family members must realize that you're doing this because you're wanting to help prepare them. And you're not saying, well, your life is over, or your time is spent, it's time to get rid of you. Oh, I need to know what you're leaving for me, or what's my inheritance. That's not the focus. The focus is on helping your family member age gracefully, age lovingly, and age in a way that they can feel really pleased with the work that they've done, so that at the end they can hear, well done, thou good and faithful servant. So having those conversations that has trust and safety at the helm of that, and listening to what they say. As people age, they have a tendency to tell you things without telling you. So listen between those lines, listen for what they're saying, listen for the unspoken things that they're expressing. And as you listen actively and pay attention to what they're saying, you can hopefully help them navigate their way through this stage of their life as best as they possibly can. Also listen for their fears and their concerns, because that also comes with it. That fear of aging, fear of dying, fear of. Listen for their fears and concerns, and encourage them to continue to depend on God and trust in Him to help them through this phase, just as He has brought them through all of the other phases and stages in their lives. And just be encouraging and helpful to them in a way that is supportive and loving, and that helps them to really embrace this new phase, knowing that at the end of it all, where they're going will be much better than where they are right now. I'll pause right now.
Thank you. And then Bishop Gary, and then Pastor Henry.
Could you rephrase? Could you put that question again to me?
Sure. I was just saying, it almost seems as if when we're older, death is saying, it's almost time, my dear, I love you. So I love you most, time to come. And for those of us who are in our 70s or 80s, sometimes the loss of a spouse, or, a child maybe, or a close family friend, might lead to a desire to have that final release. Or for whatever reason, as age is upon us, we're kind of thinking, this is the end. How can we support individuals in preparing for that phase of life, like the twilight years, so to speak?
Oh, that's an interesting question. You know, I don't know, in the sense that, I don't know, I've had a younger brother died. I had just recently, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I went to the funeral of the guy who led me to the Lord, who was actually just about 5 months older than me. Yeah, you know, we had a stroke for like 10 years. Um, and I realized, one thing I've realized is that, you know, there's a pull on you when your friends start dying and the people that you hold, etc. You know, one of the things it did for me, of course, is that it makes me more concerned about achieving what I would like to achieve. In terms of numbers, not numbers, sorry, but in the book of Proverbs chapter 90, Moses said a very powerful statement. He says, he says, give us wisdom that we could number our days. And ever so often, I think we need to remind people that the fact that our time is finite. You know, I do have some friends who say they will live forever, you know, and unless, you know, they're sure they're going to be Enoch or Elijah, and even Enoch or Elijah didn't live forever on the planet. The thing about it is that a person has got to learn to use their days and understand how to redeem days. And I think sometimes what happened is that sometimes people haven't, because they thought they had so much time in their youth, they did not make proper use of time. And sometimes the lessons that we ought to have learned in our youth, we have to learn it now in our old age. Or sometimes we find out ourselves going to old age unprepared. One of the things about it is, in Trinidad, that is, you can walk the streets and you can see many people who are in the streets are people of age, who sometimes their families disconnected with them. You know, I heard a guy said something and I didn't think about it until he said it, you know. He said, but if your son has to pick between his father and his child, he will pick his son. You know? And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Because I have 3 sons, 3 grandsons, and now a granddaughter. And I think that made me think is that how much more I need to protect myself as I go forward. They even saying that some people are even alleging that if your wife has to pick between the children and you, they'll take the children. So, as a man, it seems like as though you've got to make sure that you prepare yourself spiritually, economically, emotionally, health-wise. You've got to take those things really serious, because as a man, it seems as though you have to stand alone. And even many times friends, I think many times friends basically most friends will send you a good word. You understand? They're fair. When you have friends that will send you a good word and money behind it, that's a very special friend. You know, and when you have friends who will give you a good word and give you time, those are really good friends. You know, because many times people just say nice words and then walk off. So I think being able to talk to look at people's lives, see where they are, and be able to help course correct. The thing about it, as you get older, sometimes if a disease hits you, something takes longer to heal. If something happens, it takes longer. So when you're young, sometimes you're more, the resilient factor, they said, is stronger then. I don't know how true it is, but that's what it said. And therefore, they have to be very careful in terms of preparing them. People have to be very careful in preparing themselves. I remember dealing with an old minister. I won't call his name. He died in his 70s, but I remember sitting down with him because I was in the insurance industry back then, and asking him, not because I wanted to sell a policy or anything like that. It was nothing about selling policy. This man was my friend, you know, like a father to me. And I was kind of gently asking him, you know, have you put things in place for your wife? Because he had married a little older, a second wife, after his first wife had died. The children had grown up, but I was kind of more concerned about his wife, because I know he was very connected to the church. And sometimes what we do, especially pastors, they just think, you know, the Lord will take care of it. The Lord will take care of it. But the Lord put that responsibility on us. A good man is a man who takes care of his these inheritance, his children. We have got to understand that responsibility that God has put in us, and not just throw it back in his hands and in prayer and think that is fate. You understand? You know, So therefore, now I didn't want to do it too often, and I thank God he did do something, and his wife did tell me he did something. So I was very happy about that. Because again, the fact that it is left undone, and in the church realm, one of the most dangerous positions, that pastor's wife position, because many of them she is a full-time homemaker. She doesn't have any income of her own, and if the husband himself did not prepare properly, then he leaves that woman at many times at an old age, totally unprepared. So this is a word out to my pastor friends to be very, very careful considering, and of course, unless you have a wife who is making big and good money too. So I'll rest my case there for now.
So I would say, Dr. Sutherland, that supporting individuals in their late 70s or 80s who have lost a spouse, may be experiencing a desire for final release, those individuals require a sensitive, holistic approach. But I would like to think, as Bishop Gary was mentioning, that the responsibility for one's well-being during that period rests with the individual. And here are a few principles that I would like to help, so that I like to put forward so that hopefully they would help anyone to navigate that period in their lives. First of all, each of us should have a divine purpose for one's life during that period. Right? So we should be telling ourselves, what am I going to do during my golden years? How am I going to spend those years? Having a purpose for living during the golden years is crucial for physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. As people enter their later stages of life, the sense of purpose helps them to navigate aging with dignity, with joy, and a continued sense of meaning. Too often, couples, especially women in our part of the world, because of cultural norms, gave up their youthful aspirations to rear a family. And this is echoed in Sparrow's Calypso. Brown-skinned girl, stay home and mind baby. For I'm going away on a sailing boat. And I think the rest is too ridiculous to mention. That youthful aspiration to be a doctor or a lawyer 60 years ago was exchanged for caring or litigating for the children. Now that the husband is crossed over, the children are saddled with their own. Husband and wife are both working in order to make ends meet. Sadly, this generation does not understand the price of the sacrifice that their parents made, and so they commit the least of the evils. To appease their conscience, they commit the old lady to a home for the dying. There is a greater percentage who will get to their late 70s and 80s in this decade and will enjoy a better quality of life than their parents because they devoted themselves to fulfilling their mission in life. I would like to think that the Apostle Paul left us a great example of this idea of a mission in life. So when we reflect on his life, we see how strongly he held to the concept of having defined goals early in life, which helped him to cope in the latter years. So in the book of Philippians chapter 3, verses 12 to 14, we hear him saying, "And not that I have already attained all this, or have already arrived at my goal, but I press on to take hold of that for which Christ Jesus took hold of me." Says, "Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus." And so later on in life, when he came to that stage where he was ready to cross over, you would hear him saying to the young Timothy, "For I'm already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time of my departure is near." I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day. And not only me, but also to all those who have longed for his appearance. 2 Timothy 4:6-8. So that the concept of having a goal in life, having a mission that will take you beyond those years when the loved one has passed on, you would need to ensure that early in life that you have it in place. And so if like Chuck Willis or Percy Sledge, the you in the song, "What Am I Living For?" is the spouse. When the you dies, then you, the one I'm speaking to, would want to follow just like. Live with a purpose. Like Paul, live with a purpose, because purpose outlives those who are around you. And I would say in supporting individuals who think that their purpose on earth is in the last days, I would say that where you need to address their emotional and give emotional and spiritual support. Of course, counseling. And I would say that there are times when you have to recognize that the bush medicine that you may be recommending doesn't always work. You need to see a real doctor. And so there are times when the situation may become beyond you. You need to help those individuals you need to refer those individuals to someone who is qualified to provide counseling at that phase of their lives. For Christians, encourage those individuals to have if those people are Christians, encourage them to have a deeper relationship with God through prayer, reading, and meditation. Encourage them to speak with a pastor or spiritual leader who can guide them through feelings of loss and help them focus on the hope of eternal life, which might bring comfort in this phase of their life. Encourage social engagement and community activities. Staying engaged with family and loved ones and contributing to others are all ways that can keep you staying young even when you get into your 80s. So even at that age, there are ways to contribute to the community, mentoring young generations, sharing experiences, or offering advice in a church or community group provide opportunities to leave a legacy behind. Maintain physical and mental health, live one day at a time. That's my contribution to the question.
Thank you. And I think you kind of segued into my second question for tonight, right? Which is, what are some of the activities that individuals, even in their 60s, that can engage in that will assist them in remaining connected with family, friends, and community as they age? And what I like about the contributions is it seems like our purpose is not just for the times when we are able-bodied, when we have the mental faculties intact. It's like our purpose should be there throughout the end. Our purpose shouldn't just be about family and friends, but it should be individual. It should be what we believe God has put us here to do, so that in the event family and friends are not there when we are older, we still have that purpose, what we think God has put us on this earth to do, that should point us in directions to engage with others. So thank you for that. So Bishop Gary, I want to come to that second question that Pastor Henry so elegantly segued into. What are other activities you would say that individuals in their 60s can engage in that will keep them connected to family, friends, and community as they age? So Bishop Gary, then Dr. Neff, and then I'll come back to you, Pastor Henry.
I feel like I'm to be first because I'm the youngest here, but I'm really surprised about some of the ages. God bless them. Y'all make old age look good. Older age, I mean, so that's mature age. To me, there's a saying about as a tree bends, so will it grow, something like that. Bend the old leaf, old branch, they break. I think it's important to when the Bible tells you, remember the created now in the time of your youth. The Bible also talks about a tree falls would lie. So I think you need to develop that life of generosity, of developing friendships, of travel, of developing international friends, of picking up the phone and calling people and taking calls. Because there's some of us who sometimes we are adverse to making the calls, but sometimes there's another thing where some people are adverse to taking the calls, and you have to learn to open up your world to other people. So I think there's also things like, I already joined the Association of Retired Responsible People and all these things like that. I haven't done anything with them, but at least I have their card, I noticed that there's different groups, the credit union, the AARP, that are sometimes involved in other social activities. Some of them I can participate in as a Christian, some I cannot, some I will not, And therefore, a person has to open up themselves. Again, I think that God puts his solitary in families. And even if you don't want to think about it in the sense of being a wife and a husband, but friends, good friends, I think you need to be able to develop your network, participate in your network, and pull on your networks. One of the things I learned that I've learned as I'm growing older to cast away shame. If I need help in something, if I feel God is directing me to get help, I pick up the phone and I call people. It's not a natural thing for me to do, but I have to become that. And then I respond to my friends if they also have needs, because you can't just reject people all your life and then all of a sudden when you're old, in 65, you call people and say, I need help. Who are you, as you live your life, so you die, as bad as that sounds. So I think, it's as quickly as or as early as possible, you need to develop what I call a responsive network, one to which you respond and one to which you test them and you ask for responses. And then, you need to have those people. You need to have those very close people. You need to have the people who are just at arm's length, the people who are a little distant, because we were never created to stand on our own. God says it's not good for man to be alone, and I'm not saying that in the context of marriage. The Bible talks about you confessing your faults one to the other and praying for each other that you might be healed. And therefore, there's a part of our life where we need to be talking to people about our sense of failure, our sense of not achieving. You need to have people in your group. You need to have people not of your group, and I think that that can help you to grow. But you need to have people who in similar ages. So when you speak, you're speaking from a particular perspective. Young people don't understand some of the aches and pains that comes up as you get older. They think, you just being an old man, you're just complaining, or whatever. But you have to learn to deal with your personal realities and don't overstep your boundaries. One of the things that have concerned me very much in my personal, I don't know why it concerned, well, I guess as I get older, then I see attack on pensioners in my country. And that's something I don't know where that came from. I don't know if that's a normal thing. Maybe somebody older need to let me know. But I'm seeing people attacking these pensioners, women and men, etc. And therefore, we have to become more conscious of security. And that's something, again, we need to be sharing with other people. I don't know if I'm off the question, but as I get older, I'm concerned about the doors being open. I'm concerned about the lights being on. I'm a little more, because if I was 30 and somebody walks in, it's a little different than now at 59. I still know some kung fu, but I won't be Jackie Chan anymore. And therefore, I think one has to be concerned and one has to develop the networks around them. What is about it? Let me just say this last thing. I do have the privilege to live around my children. I live on a compound where I've invited them to have their own place in the compound, etc. And I do pull on them from time to time, and they pull on me too, And I think that's a privilege for me to be around my children, even though sometimes I'm still concerned about, when I'm not here, how they will function. But at the same time, I'm still glad to have the time with them. Sorry. That's up there for now.
So Psalms 92:14 states that they still bear fruit in old age. They are ever full of sap and green. And this scripture really encourages the idea that even in old age, that individuals can continue to contribute and live purposefully, as Pastor Henry mentioned earlier. And, I'm a firm believer in lifelong learning. And I'm also a firm believer in motion is lotion, right? And I'll kind of touch on both of those. So as far as lifelong learning is concerned, I would encourage people in their 60s. The question is, how do you engage in their 60s, engage in a variety of activities that foster connection with family, friends, and community. I would encourage volunteer work for those who have retired, so that they continue to keep their brain active and their mind working. Volunteer to local charities or church groups and in the community, even in the schools. And that would give you a sense of connection, a sense of purpose. Some older seniors still love to read. Join a book club or start one, right? Engage in those meaningful conversations and social interaction and lively discussions on topics that are of interest to you. Start a group. If there's a group that you are interested in starting, start one. We have many of our elders are really, really great cooks. Start a cooking group. Dance means movement. And I said movement, motion is lotion. When you move, you are lubricating your joints and you're keeping active and you're keeping your joints working. Fitness, become a member of a fitness group, whether it's a walking group, a yoga group, or any fitness group that allows you to move and utilize your joints and your body so that you continue to keep moving, right? Keep you alive, right? I don't believe, I'm not a believer in retiring and sitting at home in a rocking chair. I don't think I'm going to ever retire and sit at home in a rocking chair doing nothing, because doing nothing is a sure enough way of hastening your path to the grave. I think when you're moving and you're learning and you're exercising and you're engaging, you are more likely to stay alive and stay alert and stay functioning. And as you do these things, it continues that connection with your family and friends and the community. Continue to give back. As you age, you're supposed to grow in wisdom. And especially as a Christian, aging in your faith, you're able to give some of that wisdom to the younger people and pass that down to the younger women or the younger men. Utilize that wisdom, mentor somebody, help others learn more about how they grow in their faith walk, engage in family gatherings. And if you are still able to travel. Pastor Henry goes all over the world on a moment's notice. Travel, do something that keeps your mind active and moving and learning, so that your learning never ends, right? Lifelong learning. Technology, don't be afraid of it. That's the world we are in. The children, I call the children our digital natives. We older ones are more digital immigrants, right? So just as you are able to get up and go to another part of the world and learn about what's going on there, learn about technology, get to know the computer and all the social media and all those things. It's important for us to get to know those as well and to utilize those. And do something that supports others and feeds into the younger people, because you want that when you leave this world, that your legacy, the legacy that you leave, is not just for your family, but for the community, and definitely for your church community. You want part of your legacy to be that you are able to impart some of that knowledge and wisdom that God bless you with to the younger people, so they remember certain things that you say and do. I think of my mom, she passed at 88 years of age, and her wisdom, we always say that if mom grew up in a time in this day and age, she would be the most brilliant person on the face of this earth. She is a person who engaged in lifelong learning. She was self-taught in most regards. and she kept learning. She was on Facebook more than I was than I am on Facebook. I mean, she explores, and the technology was not something that scared her. She was deep into technology, exploring, and she was one of the first people to respond and share and do all the things that you do on social media. But learning was always something that she encouraged others to engage in, because learning is how we grow and how we keep our brain alive and those connections working. And I just encourage those of us who are aging to keep your mind active and share that knowledge with others, so that your legacy will be one that people remember, because you're willing to share that knowledge and that wisdom with others. And I'll pause right now.
Pastor Henry.
So once you get past the 70s, I would think that you started to live in the red. And I would like to think that I would like to encourage all of us to understand what the red means to me. It doesn't necessarily, like for the businessman, like Bishop Garvey, a deficit. It means something different for me. You see, the red for me is rest. Rest is a crucial component of a healthy lifestyle. When you are young, you can push the body to the limit. As you age, you're supposed to recognize that you can do the same things, but you need probably twice as much rest as you, a few years before. A typical example that I recognize just, I think it was earlier this year, there was a time that I would travel to Bangkok every quarter, 4 times a year. When they traveling, you go, you come back. I've been there. This last time when I went and I got back, I was sleeping for days. Somehow the time difference upset my body system. And I was saying, well, what's the matter? Well, I'm getting older. And I had to recognize that. So the body needs rest to recuperate. And I thought something, I'd gotten sick. Once I got the rest, I realized that I was back to normal, feeling just as how I am supposed to be feeling. See, rest helps to repair your muscles and help them to function properly. Somebody says it helps with your immune function. Rest supports a healthy immune system, which can better protect the body from infections and illnesses. Chronic lack of sleep is linked to increased susceptibility to colds and other infections. I got that from a doctor, so that's a quotation there. And so make sure that you prioritize your sleep. Set aside the times when you are going to bed and the times you are going to get up. And even though, like one friend told me recently, I lay down there and all sorts of things about the next day come into my head and I can't sleep and just forget them. Tomorrow, you're not even sure if you're going to awake tomorrow to do any of those things. Tell yourself that accept the promise that the Lord has left for us in relation to rest. He gives his beloved sleep. Practice relaxation. I sometime the other day I came up with the whole idea that sometimes we lack faith because we take on all the things around us. And I was looking at the passage where Jesus and the disciples were in the storm. Jesus was asleep. I mean, if you have faith in Jesus, why bother with the storm? Just relax. Go down and relax with him until the storm is past. Fighting with the storm can't do anything to fix it. You're not God. Leave it alone. It will take care of itself. Put your mind in a state so that you can learn to rest properly. All right. The E is for exercise. Exercise. So I try to walk for like an hour and a half every day. I tell myself when I get to 90, I would try to do an hour every day. And when I get to 110, well, if I can do half an hour, I'll be thankful. But you need to practice exercise, and it's a key pillar of healthy living. And so, you know, I'm not saying to do an hour and a half walk every day. When I say hour and a half, well, I don't do the hour and a half straight. I do it in 2 or 3 sessions, probably 3 half-hour sessions, as the case may be, or 2 45-minute sessions. But regular physical activity helps to prevent disease, improve mood, and boost overall quality of life. Right. So
sometimes
practice your exercise. And the last one is the D. And I'm still struggling with this one. It's a good diet. Watch what you eat. And my wife is very particular, and I have had a habit from a child that she's trying to break in my old age. I am trying hard to break it. But I grew up on sweets. I love sweets. Nothing tastes good unless it has sugar. But some of these things, you have to realize what is good for you and what is not good for you as far as your diet is concerned. Talk to your doctor. Talk to some of your health professionals so that they can guide you as to what the proper vitamins and minerals you should be using to help to boost your body system, right? And I support Dr. Neff. Engage in lifelong learning. So after you've gone from the red, engage in lifelong learning. This is for your mental faculties. I think it was about a year or two, a friend of ours, one of our family members, graduated with a PhD. And here was a lady who was in her 80s, who was graduating with her and receiving her PhD. And I said, listen to me, Anthony Henry, you are wasting your mind. You need to get back to school and start to study. Yes. And I definitely support Dr. Neff. One of the things that I admired with Americans a few years when I started to go to the Americas in the 70s and so on. One of the things, you went into the airport and almost everybody had a book they were reading. You go to the same airports now and everybody has one of these little gadgets in the hand. And they're either looking at some video or they're and so the society is now what it used to be, and it's the same thing that has happened to us in the Caribbean. We are not reading anymore. Long ago, we could have gone, print a tract and give it to somebody on the side of the street. They would read it. Nobody wants tract. As a matter of fact, we stopped printing tracts because nobody is reading anymore. And thank God we have other means. We're going to have to use the means that they're using to get the word to them. But reading stimulates the mind. Do puzzles that like crossword puzzles and Sudoku and what have you, that would help you, that would challenge your mind. Get involved in games like chess and other sort of card games that would help you to think and help the mind to stay active. Okay. Then you need social interaction. We can't stress that too much. I think I fully agree with the other panelists. You know, you can't pull yourself aside as a hermit and expect to live very long. Get into the community, do whatever is necessary. Social interaction, that's how we've been made to interact. God saw when he made Adam that it wasn't good for him to be alone, give him a helpmeet, and they were able to interact with each other. And so stay connected with family and friends. There are too many who get into that age and lost contact. They no longer have friends. They no longer have anyone. And so you find yourself in that situation. You find yourself getting down in age. Remember all those who are wrong, those who are at your age. The younger people may not understand, and you may not be able to communicate with some of the younger people. And I definitely am having problems because the language, the English language, new words are being added every day, especially in the computers thing. But when I hear a new word, the young people using a new word, I go and I Google it to find out what they mean. And this is not anything that, wrong that they're saying, but they use a particular term, and I go to ChatGPT and try to see exactly what it means so as to hear what AI has to tell me what they're actually saying to me. Stay connected with family, friends, and participate in community groups, clubs, volunteer activities, etc. And somebody mentioned something a little earlier on, but as you age, you get into your 60s, think of leaving a legacy. We have taught over the years that a good man, and it's scriptural, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children. But before inheritance should come a legacy. And it is more important than, a legacy is more important than leaving an inheritance. When considering your legacy, think holistically about how you want to be remembered in terms of your values, your relationships, your contributions, and the impact you would have had on others. I think it was Stephen Covey who said that, think of your 80th birthday. And I would like to say, stress it even further than the 80th, but think of that birthday party. Your friends are coming to wish you well, and your children are there, your grandchildren are there, and think about what you would want them to say about you. Think about what you would want to hear them say of your life. And it says, when you have come up with that thought, start living today as if it was your 80th birthday. Or in other words, start practicing what you think you would want people to say about you when you are 80, so that when you get there, you would have developed for yourself a legacy. You would have, I know some people are going to say, yes, that Pastor Henry is a miserable guy. He meticulous, he like details and all of these different things. But there are things that I do conscientiously, knowing that those are the things that I would want to be remembered for. All right. So reflect on how your daily actions, your decisions, and the love you share with others contribute to the larger story in your life. And so let me just say again, a legacy is not something that you're going to build overnight, but it's a culmination of a life lived with intention, with faith, and with purpose. And when you consider these elements, you can ensure that your legacy reflects the essence of who you are and leaves a positive, lasting impact on future generations. And finally, the 60th is a good time to reflect on what you want to be remembered for, instead of whining about failures, or like the foolish man who thought he had achieved everything and decided to sit back, eat, drink, and be merry, as in 12:18 to 20. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, so much information. And I wish I had some time for a few more questions, but I'll just recap what we've covered tonight in terms of, as persons get older, and those are members of our families. Let's listen to what they're saying, listen to see if they have fears, making sure that we live with purpose, and hopefully we have wisdom so that we add number to our days. For those of us who have parents, it is important to understand the sacrifice they've made and perhaps to give some of that time back. But we need to be wise enough to ensure that even if that support does not come, we make our own preparations, develop a network, volunteer, contribute to your communities, not just those at your age, but persons who might be older than you or younger than you are. And ensure that you live with purpose, so that even at that age, your purpose is driving you. Learn new things, be a lifelong learner. And more than talking about giving children an inheritance, ensure that there is a legacy. So before inheritance, legacy should come. And think on that 80th birthday. What do you want people to be saying to you and live towards it? A lot of wisdom nuggets tonight. But I have a personal question I want to ask as we wrap up tonight's program. We just have shy of 10 minutes left. And so I'll come in the order of Bishop Gary, Dr. Neff, and Pastor Henry. I want to ask, and almost three different decades being represented. So I'm excited to hear what the answer to this question would be. I'm throwing a curveball. As you age, what are you looking forward to most, or what are you anticipating? As you age, what are you looking forward to most or anticipating? And I'll give them 30 seconds because this is not a pre-planned question. So I see Bishop Gary already laughing, like perhaps he has the answer, or
my purpose means clear in terms of bringing change to the lives of people. I have some very specific things that I want to channel my strength and energies into in terms of education. One, for the evangelical community, and two, as far as the leadership and business in the African economy, etc., the nations that I'm connected to.
Okay. That's it. Thank you, Dr. Neff.
That's it, Bishop Gary?
I think that's a huge plan that he now has to unpack, because
That's in a nutshell.
Wow. Oh, well, okay. As I age, what am I looking forward to most, and what am I anticipating? That's the question.
Yes.
Well, I'm looking forward to growing in wisdom and learning how to harness and embrace that wisdom and pass that wisdom on to the younger generation. I would like to leave a legacy, and I'm hoping that I've been working on that legacy that I can leave for my children and my children's children, and not just my children, but because I do work with children and parents, that I can leave for them as well, because I really would like to leave an impact there. Spiritual growth, of course, is a must. That's part of my foundation. And I would like to do more travel, become a little more adventurous in my old age, as my health would allow. And definitely would like the freedom and independence to pursue some of my passions in my later life. And I'll share one of my passions because I'm such an advocate for lifelong learning. And this is something that my mom and I had talked about before she passed, and we were kind of behind the scenes working on. Because she was such an inspiration for someone who loves learning and knowledge. We talked about opening up an adult educational center for senior adults who are, and as you know, we're living a little longer, right? And oftentimes the baby boomers, which I fall under, and younger ones are helping to help take care of our older parents. And we had talked about opening up this center where adults, senior adults, could come, pretty much like you have a child care center, a daycare center for children, a daycare center for adults, for senior adults who are still, well able-bodied, who are still interested in learning, who are still very active, where they can come during the day instead of sitting at home just watching TV or vegging away. They can come and be active and be social and learn and do yoga and exercises and all the things that they can help impart to others, and just have a full day, so that when they go home at the end of the day, they can go home and do the rest that Pastor Henry is talking about, and the sleeping and the rest. But in order to keep their minds active and energized, they'll have a place to go to where we can help them with their lifelong learning and their spiritual development and their physical development and their mental development, because we find that many of our seniors are becoming mentally challenged because they're lonely, they feel discarded, and they feel as though they don't have that purpose that Pastor Henry is talking about, a place where they can come and just be energized and continue learning as they grow. So that's something I'm very much still very passionate about doing in her honor. And I am, been praying about it and doing some things and getting things in order for that, because I still would like to fulfill that desire.
I
So-
love that, Dr. Nev. And I read a research paper a while back that says usually when you get older folks and toddlers in the same room, that they're actually good for each other. So God willing, we're in the same space at that time. I hope that perhaps we consider opening a daycare for older persons and toddlers. I think that is going to make for a good television series. Things that toddlers and older people say, but no, that is a fantastic idea. I'll look for the research paper and send it to you.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're just shy of 8:30. So I am going to say good night and thank you for joining us before I hand over to Pastor Henry. So don't leave too soon. I'm just making sure he's able to give his contribution, but to say thank you again for joining us for another episode of Real Talk Family Life. Pastor Henry, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Neff. So my contribution, what I would like to do in the rest of my life, I have visited about 60 cities in my lifetime. I'd like to do another 40.
What?
All right. I've been to about 60 cities around the world, some very interesting ones. So I'd like to do another 40. But apart from that, there was one gentleman who impacted my life very early in Christianity. I was still a teenager. I think Dr. Neff may have remembered him, a gentleman from Barbados named Reverend Brathwaite. He was a different preacher altogether. Pilgrim Holiness, I think he was belonging to, but he was different. He wasn't the top preacher, but when he preached, he gave you truth, he gave you knowledge, he gave you understanding. And during my life, I have seen so many changes. I would like to be that for at least one young person who would take the message to a next generation, message of John 3:16, because I look at the church today and it seems as though we don't understand that simple gospel message, John 3:16. There is so much hate for everything. Simply because we have been following the devil's, what he fed Eve with. We have been eating what he fed Eve with, that you're going to become God. None of us are going to be God. And the world out there that we hate Muslims, we hate Hindus, we hate this one, we hate the other one. And John 3:16 is saying to us, for God so loved the world. In Trinity term, when you love something, so how much love you have for it. And so God so loved the world. Didn't just say God loved the world, but God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And it wasn't for the Christians, it was for the world. And so I'm hoping that God would raise up this young man somehow. You would hear the message. God would raise up a young man somewhere so that our next generation would be better than the one in which we live. Thank you. So I think, let me just allow Dr. Neff and Brother Pastor Garway to give their closing remarks, and then we would wrap up.
Okay, let me just say, life isn't ended until it's ended. And I like the life of Jacob, even though he lived the youngest of the three patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, only 147 rather than 180 for Isaac, 175 for Abraham. He, on the last day, he called his 12 sons together and was able to give them a sense of duty, responsibility, and prophecy. And then he lifted up his legs and then he went home to be with the Lord. He lived to his very last day, a youthful person, a person of respect, etc., and a person who could mandate the next generation and having laid foundations for them. And I think it's a very good thing to understand that we can't do everything, we won't achieve everything, but we could start some things. And let us do those things to the best of our ability. So the meaning of man and woman in Hebrew is isha. It means what the meaning is to leave a mark. And I think every one of us are able to leave some mark upon somebody if we make some effort. God bless.
Aging can be a time of rich opportunities and experiences, and I would want to encourage those of us listening and those of us who are working with or living with aged parents or aging parents or loved ones to embrace this time of change and experience with your loved one, because it can be a very fulfilling and meaningful journey for both of you. The Bible encourages us to have respect for the elderly, to have wisdom in planning for the future, and to encourage that for them, and to focus on spiritual growth as we age. It reassures us that God's continual presence and support throughout our life changes and our life stages emphasizes that every age has its purpose and value. And let us be mindful that the purpose and value that is in place for the elderly or the aged senior citizens of our communities and our families are ones that has a purpose for our lives as well. That their purpose, their value impacts our purpose and our value, and that as we embrace them and as we embrace what God has blessed us with by having them in our lives, we will continue to hopefully continue their legacy and build on that legacy so that our families become stronger and stronger and stronger as we continue to do what? Build Shadowful families, one brick at a time. Thank you all for listening.
And thank you for listening, and the wisdom that you learned today, you should be better off tomorrow for it. So thank you again for joining us for Real Talk Family Life. We will be back next Saturday evening. We will continue the discussion on preparing for the golden years, the senior years, and we ask you to bring a friend and join us, and the Lord bless you. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you, Dr. Neff, and thank you, Bishop Garway, for sharing with us this evening. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, and thank you, John. Thank you, panelists. It was really enlightening and a lot a lot of food for thought. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you to all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And I love your idea, Dr. Neff. Love it.
Thank you.